WTIM.
Welcome in to WTIM, your information station. Time now for the WTIM morning show. Thanks so much to the sponsors that make the show possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. And Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. On the line now, we have Jack Myers, a public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration. How are you today, Jack Myers?
I'm doing well, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing super well, and I'm ready to be informed of all things Social Security. So let's start with overpayments and understanding overpayments, because Social Security is not always perfect, and people need to know out there what to do when overpayments happen. So take it from here.
Yeah, so it's an important topic that I think we should talk about, and people should understand just in general how it works. But then there's also something kind of newsworthy to talk about with regard to Social Security, because our Commissioner, Martin O'Malley, recently addressed overpayments in a testimony before Congress and announced some changes that are being made to how we collect overpayments. So we'll touch a little bit on the process in general, and then also talk about some of those changes. And, as you mentioned, sometimes even though we strive to pay the right amount to the right person at the right time, and we do it with a high degree of accuracy, there are occasions where we do get it wrong, and that creates an overpayment. And when that happens, Congress requires that we make every effort to recover the overpaid benefits. But one of the things that Commissioner O'Malley noted during his congressional testimony is that doing so, in terms of what I mean by doing so, is recovering the overpayment without regard to the larger purpose of our program, can result in grave injustices to individuals. And he announced the updates on how we're going to address those improper payments. So, a lot of that has to do with how we recover it. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when a person is overpaid.
Yes.
What kind of options you have, how you get notified, right? Because that's something I think that's important to the conversation, and it kind of dives into a little bit of the scam conversation too, Tim, because that's something that people use sometimes as a scammer to try to get your attention. So I think it's very important to note that if you do get overpaid from Social Security, we're not going to call you to talk about that. We're not going to call you and demand some form of immediate payment. We don't accept payment via gift cards. We don't accept payment via cash. We don't accept payment through wire transfers. And we do not call you and try to threaten or persuade you to pay that immediately. So those are red flags. If you do get overpaid by Social Security, you will get a letter informing you of the overpayment. And that letter will talk to you about what your options are. So basically, your options would be to repay the overpayment, to request an appeal, or to request a waiver. And what the terms of the overpayment are, or how it occurred, that's all going to kind of go into what you want to do. So, let's say, for example, that you were overpaid, you do agree with the overpayment, then you could repay it. And the old rule was that if we sent you that letter and you didn't respond, then after a certain amount of time, and it would tell you that amount of time in the letter, our standard response was to, if you were getting benefits anyway, was to withhold 100% of your monthly benefit. And that's one of the things that Commissioner O'Malley announced has changed. So effective with March 25th of this year, the new policy is if you don't respond to the overpayment letter, the default withholding rate will be 10% of your monthly benefit. So that's similar to how we do it with the SSI, Supplemental Security Income Program. Now, if you have a Social Security overpayment and you don't respond to the letter, then after that certain amount of time that is dictated in the letter, we will start withholding at 10% of your monthly benefit. So that's a huge change. It just goes from taking your full payment to taking 10%, which, we think is going to make a big difference for folks. So that's kind of under that repay, right? Yeah. So if you're going to repay, that's how it's going to be done. We also have some flexibility there. So let's say, for example, you agree with the overpayment, but you can't afford to repay even at 10% of your monthly payment. There is a possibility that we could approve a lesser withholding rate. We're limited to no less than $10, so it's got to be at least $10. But if your proposal or your proposed amount to repay will repay the debt within 60 months, we can approve it even if it's less than 10% of your monthly benefit, as long as it's more than $10. And then, even if you can't afford to repay it within 60 months, there is a possibility that we could approve a lesser withholding. But in order to approve something less than 10% that would take more than 60 months to repay, there would be some additional paperwork. So there's a form, it's an SSA 634. You'll find out about that in the letter, but I just kind of want to mention for now that would potentially be a possibility. I'm not sure how much of that we're going to see. Fortunately, this 10% thing I think is going to be a big help for folks. And a couple of little things to note about that in terms of timing. So number one, this is for new overpayment. So if you're already paying an overpayment back, the 10% withholding rate is not going to happen automatically for you. So if you want to revisit that and you want to request a lesser withholding rate, you can do that. You can give us a call at 800-772-1213 or 877-279-9504 to our Springfield office. But then the other thing to note, Tim, is that we're still working on getting our computer systems updated so that even for new overpayments, that 10% becomes the norm. So if you get a new overpayment in the near future here and you notice that it's not the 10% withholding, give us a call if you wish to request that 10%, and we can get that put in your file for you so that we can take 10% instead of a full withholding. And that's kind of during this transition period there.
Sure. Well, there's no question why the Social Security Commissioner, Martin O'Malley, wanted to address this. These are really big changes here. And a lot of questions come to my mind about were people maybe missing that piece of mail and then losing all 100% of their benefits? Was that kind of the case?
Well, that could have happened. Sometimes if you didn't get the letter, because basically what triggered that 100% withholding would be if you didn't respond to the overpayment letter. So if you didn't see it, then yeah, ultimately that would have led to that. I think more times than not, it was just that people didn't respond to it. But certainly if a letter was missing, that would have triggered that same response. Now it's going to be a 10% withholding, so a lot more manageable for folks. And that was just one I mentioned, Tim, that there are a few options that a person has. So I focused on repaying the overpayment, which is one of the options. But then there's also the ability to request an appeal. So if you get the overpayment letter and you don't think that it's accurate, you don't believe that you were overpaid, you have 60 days to file a request for an appeal, and that would be what we call a request for reconsideration. There is a form, it's an SSA 561, but that's going to be in your letter, so you don't really have to worry about understanding or remembering that form number right now. And then the other option one would be if you do believe that you were overpaid and it was an accurate amount, but you can't afford to repay and you don't think it was your fault, you can request what we call a waiver. So basically, you'd say, I see that I was overpaid, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't cause the overpayment. I shouldn't have to repay the overpayment. And if you wanted to do that, that's called a waiver. So you would file that request for waiver of overpayment recovery. If the overpayment is $1,000 or less, we may be able to take that request from you without a form, but if it's 1,000 or more, we're going to need that form. And another one of the changes that Commissioner O'Malley recently announced has to do with how we process these waiver requests. So basically, fault is part of that. You have to be able to show that it wasn't your fault. But Commissioner O'Malley recently announced that we will be basically making it easier for people to request the waiver and reframing guidance and procedures on how Social Security reviews those. So basically what he announced was that the burden of proof will shift away from you as the individual who was overpaid in determining whether there's any evidence of fault. So essentially, you don't have to prove that you weren't at fault. We'll have to find ways to prove that you were, I guess is the best way to put it, in order to process that waiver request. So some big changes, I guess, is the point there. Big changes to the waiver process, big changes to the repayment. Probably the biggest change is to that 10% instead of 100% withholding.
We are understanding Social Security overpayments right now with Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. We're going to have some more topics with Jack Myers when we come back from the break. I'm Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Your information station, WTIM.
Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn, beans, and wheat all slightly higher at this hour. May corn up 441 3/4. July corn up 1 1/4, 451. New crop December 474 1/4, up 1 3/4. May beans 1167 1/4, up 6 1/4. July beans up 5 1/2, 1182, and new crop November 1175 3/4, up 4. May Chicago wheat 571 1/2, up 1 1/4. July wheat up 1 3/4, 589 1/4. May bean meal 347.50, that's up 320. May bean oil 44.91, down 13 cents. Livestock market at this hour. April feeders 243.50, that's up 60 cents. April live cattle 184 even, up 17 cents. May lean hogs 96.80, that's up a dime. Energy market, June crude oil 82.08, up 18 cents. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
As a state employee, you work hard to make Illinois a better place. At Health Alliance, we do too. It's our Illinois roots that set us apart. Our HMO plan for state of Illinois employees features the doctors and hospitals you know and trust. So whether you're a first responder in O'Fallon or a staffer in Springfield, Health Alliance is the obvious choice for your state employee coverage. Learn more at healthalliance.org/state of Illinois. The benefit choice period ends May 31st.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, are proud to continue their long-standing sponsorship of honoring Taylorville High School Students of the Month on WTIM's many platforms on AM, FM, and streamed online, and on WMKR Genuine Country 94.3.
Hi, my name is Ariana Presnell. I'm the daughter of Melody and Chris Presnell, and I'm the Taylorville High School Junior Student of the Month. For extracurricular activities, I'm in the Colors of Pride Club at THS and Girl Scouts. I like to read, draw, and roller skate. And in the future, I plan to own my own coffee and bakery shop. And my favorite subject is Spanish.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, salutes these great Taylorville High School students on this honor and wish them the best in their future. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
Scott Primer here from Locust Grove Church near Assumption. We're spreading the good news of Christ in person and online. Come join our family or watch our video sermon podcast by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Lauren Asali here, owner of Schaefer Perfetti and Asali Funeral Home, Taylorville's only locally owned and operated funeral home. We honor lives and celebrate memories. Find out all about our services we provide by clicking on our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. We are in the midst of the WTIM Morning Show. This segment, we are sitting down with Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. We were understanding overpayments from Social Security in that first half. Now, switching gears, because we just got through tax season, yet another one here. But now I want to learn about preparing for the next tax season with the business services online. Mr. Jack Myers, what do you got for us here?
Yeah, so Tim, all of us are kind of used to the April 15th deadline that we as taxpayers face. But there's another thing that I want to talk about, maybe from a slightly different perspective when it comes to tax season, and that's the deadline that employers face, because employer wage reports were due to Social Security at the end of January. And So we're kind of thinking a little bit ahead. So that's kind of in the rear view, of course, by a couple months now. But I want to get people to think ahead to 2025 because there were some changes in IRS regulations that reduced the electronic filing thresholds from 250 W-2s to 10 informational returns this year. So basically what that means is if you are an employer who had fewer than 250 employees, you used to be able to just send in paper W-2s to Social Security. But now you're kind of stuck with doing electronic if you're more than 10. So that's going to make a lot more people required to do electronic returns than ever before. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about how you do that and how you be prepared to do it for next year. And there's something that we have on our website. It's at ssa.gov. That is our website. There's something called Business Services Online. So you could go to ssa.gov/BSO or just look for Business Services Online there. But that's how you're going to get started if you are the one that's going to be responsible for submitting wage reports to Social Security for your organization or company. Now, I know that some companies use a third-party service to do this, and if you do, then maybe you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to be responsible for submitting those W-2s or W-2Cs or verifying employee Social Security numbers, then you need to get this set up. Let's say, for example, somebody else has been doing that for your company, but they're going to retire this year, and next year that's going to be your responsibility. The Business Service Online is unique to the individual, not the company. So you need to get started on getting that set up so that you can do this stuff for your company next year. And it's always better to be prepared to do this in advance as opposed to waiting until the last minute, because it takes some time. You have to go in, you have to set up the Business Service Online account, you have to link it to your own personal My Social Security account. You also will have to select the services that you want to do, and then we will send something to your employer just to make sure that they are okay. They have to authorize that, and that'll be sent through the regular mail. So there is some time built in. Obviously, we're really far away at this point from January of 2025, but it's still a good time to start thinking about that, because then you're not under any stress. You know, get it done now so that you're ready when next year's deadline to file those W-2s comes up. And again, that's ssa.gov. Look for Business Services Online and get started on that today.
All really important stuff to know, especially here with the online feature being added into things. Really happy to hear about that. Jack Myers, we're in our last 2 minutes here. I think it would be a good idea to let all of our listeners know about the scams going on this month. Of course, they're still persisting out there, but what's going on with scams and Social Security this week?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of the same thing. You just have to be careful when the phone rings, you know, to make sure you're talking to somebody who really is who they say they are. We've got some resources on our website. So if you go to ssa.gov/scam, you can find out all of the, important stuff to know about scams and, kind of some reminders. We're not going to threaten you. We're not going to try to create a sense of panic for you. So just be aware of those sorts of things. We also have a blog that we call Social Security Matters. So if you go to our website at ssa.gov and just look for our communications center, you will find things like our blog, and in there we've got a nice little list of the top 5 scam awareness articles, so you can see those too. ssa.gov/scam. Keep up on it, because we just want to make sure that you don't lose any information or money to one of these scammers.
Absolutely not. And if we can get the word out there to help that just a little bit, I'm glad we did today. That was ssa.gov/scam. If they have any more information they want to get on that one, Jack Myers.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. ssa.gov in general is our website, and then ssa.gov/scam will take you to information about scams.
Beautiful. Jack Myers, we are out of time. Thank you so much for getting us all informed today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That was Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. You've been listening to the WTIM Morning Show right here on WTIM, your information station.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5